Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I was thinking to talk about something that, well, you've messaged me. There's quite a few that have been telling me, sharing this kind of challenges that you face with your diet, all this, along the way when you're trying to improve certain things or help yourself solving a certain situation. And it's not just that, but I've noticed that everyone has these things, myself included, continuously, is like as the energy grows, because as I've been saying many times before, it's all of these things happen because, well, things are changing. These are times of great change, so things don't stay the same. So the rate at which we have to integrate change it's really high, and these kind of things we were never really told as we were, let's say, coming into this world. That, well, some of us found out along the way certain things and put together the puzzle and figured out certain things. But as you are being born into this reality, inserted in this reality, you are not really prepared to the extent of what this kind of like change that we are living right now it entails. And the diet and the change in diet, it's one of those things. And I will actually I will give you an example, my personal example, what I have been encountered until now in my life, due to all these changes. The energy, all these increments, and like all the shifts, what they meant for me previously to, let's say, the time of my when I did the process. I know there's a lot of you that struggle with like what to eat, how not to eat, or how to do certain things, because obviously health is the most important, and you want to do your best to be in perfect health, or as best you can, as in like to be in a good operating shape. What you see, that what works yesterday doesn't work today, or what worked until 12 o'clock today, at 1 o'clock it's not going to work anymore. So it's very frustrating, and that's why I said when I made the first video, when I talk about the blending process, about myself, when I was explaining all these things, and later after that I was saying that I don't want to stay there after I did that process, and I didn't say that I will stop eating completely after that, because in a way it was unrealistic, because I knew that more changes would come, and then my body would require certain periods of time when I would actually have to eat more. There's other periods when I would actually have to eat less or at all, and I would have to be okay with that, and I would have to stop judging myself. And in time, you get used to it. If you really accept the fact that this is a huge transition, and you just pay attention at what's asked of you in every moment, how you should adjust yourself, your whatever, not just the nutrition part or whatever, but everything else in your life. But in this case, the nutrition. When you pay attention to those things, then it's much easier to go through all this, most of the times unpleasant and uncomfortable changes that happen with your body, within your body. So I know it's not easy, because I know how it is, or has been for me until now, and it still is at times. Even now, when I'm filming this video right now, I'm going through a situation where I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to film the video today, but I've been postponing this for quite a while. The details of the situation I will give in the next video, which is an update. But even I struggle a lot of times to when are these changes are not in full swing, so I have a window so I can do certain things, when I can like focus and do what I need to do. So I know that it's not easy, and it's really unpleasant, and that's why I always invite you to be flexible with your routines. Is like what you should adapt, what you should, the things that you need to change whenever necessary. So that's why I myself, I I cannot just do only one thing. That's why I said that I'm a hybrid right now. I'm doing my dry mode, but I eat, I consume things. There's weeks then I cannot have more than almost a day when it's dry. I mean days when it's almost a day I'm being in dry mode. Then I have 1 or 2 weeks when I don't want to hear about food or seafood or whatever, and then again comes an intense period of time where these things are like, oh, I have to eat this or whatever, and then look at things, oh, I have to still clear this, because as the energy grows, makes certain things available that before then you wouldn't have accessed, and you couldn't have cleared those things. So for that you need more energy, and sometimes this comes from food, because it is what it is right now, and because the flow of energy is not where it's supposed to be when everything works as it should be. So that being said, you should like be gentle with yourself when you're going through these periods, when you're, let's say you have a health problem, which most of the time, if not every time, is actually behind it there's a spiritual cause. Well, but I explain what spiritual is, but you know what I mean. And you have to, it's an emotional or a mental problem that you have to solve, and you have to look for it. And until you solve that, then it's much harder to deal with the physical consequence of that problem or that situation that has been stored within your body. So don't beat yourself up when you have to eat more or you have to take supplements. I said, please help yourself, or go visit a doctor if you're not sure. I did myself a similar thing going through this weird time, but I'll talk about this in the next update about the situation with myself. So just be flexible. You don't have to prove it to anyone anything. But going back, as I said in the beginning of the video, I want to give you a little bit of like my story of like my challenges until now, is like what I've encountered as the energy grew, as these changes happened naturally, because there's some of us that start to feel them even when they're small, and of course they're gradual, because you cannot do all these things at once because the energy is not there, and if you do too much then you destroy the body. So that's why it takes so long, or it feels like, oh, it's a never-ending thing. Come on, it's like, when are you going to live that high reality life? Well, it's in the making, and there's sometimes more moments of that reality, and then feels like it's less because there's still things to be clear, things to go through here. So you just have to be really, really patient with that. You cannot ask. I mean, I know for people in this reality, because the energy has been so limited, also the perspective of what life, or like how much time certain things need, it feels like, oh, this is taking too long. But I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some of us that already, even if they're like considered older, like I'll be soon 40, we don't look old anymore. Is because some of us we can follow this transition. We can change. We go with these changes, and we we will not have the same bodies of the previous, whatever, say, people had, and or the lifespan. So that's another thing that is changing right now. So that's a huge thing, and there's a selection happening, and that's why I said the clearing is so important, because this will help you to just move through, just get rid of the things that block that light to come in and transform the things, and basically give you a different life, a different lifespan, and many other wonderful and interesting things. Sorry, this was a little extra parenthesis. Going back to the changes that I've encountered, so I mean, in regards to the diet, even when I was a kid, like between 6 and 8, I've already started to experience weird things with, besides the invisible situation, that the things that were happening in the background. But with the diet, I was very sensitive even back then to some things which I never realized until later in life, that I was lactose intolerant or gluten intolerant or things like that. But back then, well, like was in the middle of the 80s, something like that, that was just like not really a thing. And the information that was available back then, although luckily it's stretched here, but because of one of my family member went through something, a big situation with her health, we were guided by actually a standard physician, a doctor, that we should look elsewhere for solutions for her problem. And he actually turned us toward the alternative medicine. And so then we started exploring the medicinal plants, fruits, veggies, juices, things like that. So this is the time when in the 80s I was learning as a child, as we were trying to figure out my aunt's situation. I was learning with her all these things even back then. And as she was going through all this diet changes, as she was adjusting all these things so she can make it, by the way, she's still alive and she's a therapist now. And she's in her 70s, although she doesn't look like in her 70s. Anyways, I do have people that have lived over 100, so yeah. But anyways, so as I was learning all these things with her, I was applying all the changes that she was doing for herself in my own diet, and I was already seeing improvements even back then. And at 14, when I decided that I'm going to be a vegetarian, by the way, in the early 1990s, that was like, oh, people around me will tell me, you're going to die, it's just stupid, you won't be able to develop your brain, you're still a child, you need to learn, you're not going to be smart later, intelligent. And I was like, none of those things really have applied to me. I went to a lot of schools after that, so that's no problem. And I learned a lot after that. But I personally inside, I knew, I had this knowing that whatever I'm doing is right. And I wasn't afraid. And I didn't understand why people around me were so afraid. Later, of course, I understood, different codes, they came with this kind of information. They cannot see what I see. I came with a different set of codes, and then I can actually bring this kind of like understanding and perspective that they cannot have right now. But that doesn't mean it's easy for me to go through all these things. And in my early 20s, that was like beginning of 2000, I already was aware of the raw food movements and things like that. But that back then they were like little brochures, really little small things. And I thought that was great, but to make a raw soup back then was like, great. I don't know how to do that. They were explaining, but the procedure felt so complicated. I was like, yeah, I can't do that. But I was eating a lot of salads, a lot of like fruits and veggies, like raw, either way. And I was trying to prepare all sorts of things back then, but still was very limited. Then later in life, okay, we have blenders, we have all these things that like, and people, of course, that were putting out that information, also their own personal experiences. They're trying to improve their health, physical state. And then it was much easier. And when I turned 25, that's when I actually had another, as the energy increased and all the shifts in energy and all these things were changing, even my physiology. I woke up one day, and by the way, back then I was still a big lover of like milk and yogurt, and of course cheese. Because I didn't eat meat anymore since I was 14, so cheese, milk, so dairy was a big part of my diet back then, along with veggies, fruits and veggies. So I woke up one day, I went to the fridge, I think I got my yogurt or the milk, or no, I think I drank some milk. And as I was drinking the milk, there was this weird taste, or like felt in my throat. I felt like I had swollen a cow or something like that, and this kind of smell that, I don't know if you've been around a cow in a field, the smell of the hay with the cow next to you. I felt it in my throat, and I was like, what's this? It's like, whoa, horrible. So I was like, this is weird. And the same happened with the yogurt. It's like never happened before. It's just I never really had this thing. And then I knew, well, then already some things have been revealed to me through certain experiences. And I knew that things are not the same anymore. And even if I'm trying to continue things like to ignore them, they will never be the same. So that was the time when I stopped basically eating, drinking milk and yogurt, or really rarely. Back then I was like eating a lot of like this natural yogurt, like simple yogurt. And then I tried to switch to like very low fat, but with fruits like berries and things like that. But it wasn't until I turned 31 when I became vegan. And then, and by then already other things were happening that my body was signaling me that things again have changed. And you might say, okay, this is the age. It's not just that. I was just like, I never had greasy hair until then. And before that, I was actually consuming low fat, this kind of like, in German it's Quark, this kind of like really low fat cheeses and things like that, like things that you smear on your bread and things like that. And I didn't understand. It's like, how is this possible? And of course, I was eating commercial sweets. Well, chocolate, because I don't really eat that many, I wasn't eating that many other things. And when I was 31, I just changed my diet again. I became vegan, although I had this already, I had accumulated by then a lot of information to make this like, okay, I'm going to do this now, to shift like once more. But then I had also like really strong reason why I should do that. And in three months, I got rid of, actually, first of all, asthma. I didn't know that's like how I'm going to cure this. I had this until then and was bothering me from time to time, especially in winter time. And I got rid of it in 3 months, and many other things, of course. And then I was never really fat, but I got rid of some weight like immediately, and then I was just one size smaller. And I was just like, wow, just by eating only these things. And I was afraid that I would never be able to like get over my obsession with cheese, and the fear that most people have, that is like, oh my god, I'm never going to be able to get rid of it or forget about this. It took only a week until this thing's cleared. And and then other things happened. And then later, a few years later, in 2015, when I was 35, I did the process. But then again, things never stayed there. I went through these phases, more things transform, more things are changed, but then there's other layers and layers because everything is gradual. As I said, this is a huge transformation. And if you're meant to move forward, first of all, there's a lot of things that are not available right now in time. So certain things are available time is accretion of energy. So certain things become available when you accrete a certain amount of energy, which here translates as time. So we're going through time. See those spirals? Oh, here's another cycle. So that's why you have to have patience with all these things, because certain things are not yet available. And if you, as I said, you are meant to move forward, then you have to keep up with all these changes and be flexible and say, okay, what is asked of me to do right now? How am I supposed to, go through this? So if this week you're going to have to eat more, great. Next week you might not. Or you see that you have developed certain sensitivity towards certain foods, and then you have to get rid of them. Like for me now, it's grain, although I haven't really eaten like most people eat commercial bread or things like that. Yet even because for me certain things have been so accelerated, certain things are not tolerated. Then again, other things become more friendly, so to speak. Things that haven't been so friendly for me, or like things that I would have never turned to them from the vegan spectrum and things like that. So yes, you cannot just like, oh, I have to do only this and only this works. It doesn't. It's not a time that everything is like set in stones and that's it. It is what it is, and the more you are present with your body and what is asking of you to do or not to do, the better it is for you and the easier it is for you to go through these incredible times. They are really extraordinary times that we're living right now, and some of us have the privilege of really moving forward. And at times, most times, it's not easy or comfortable or pleasant, or that's how things are right now. So be good to yourself no matter what. So just be open and just be there, just pay attention. Okay, I hope this was interesting and helpful. See you next time. Ciao. Spiritual or non-spiritual, you have to accept them, you have to take them in, you have to yes, you have to unite